Hello guys, today we're going to be making a tiered heart ornament. This design is not only pretty, which of course is the most important part, but it's also really quick and easy, and it's an amazing scrap buster. Because if you look here at the tiers of the actual heart, each of them is just one strip of fabric. And then these pieces here that surround it that actually create the heart shape, there's only 4 of those pieces. So this is a really great way to use up all those little pieces and parts that are left over from your other projects. And they can just be randomly ordered, or you could do some kind of pattern or whatever. And speaking of that, we made you something awesome. This is a fabric planning template, and let me show you how cool this is. Let's say you're not sure what order you want to put your fabrics in, or you just want to play around with it, because sometimes it is a little bit hard to know what your fabrics are going to look like on the actual ornament itself. You'll just cut out the heart shape. We've got dashed lines showing you where to cut, and then you can lay it right over top of your fabrics. And boom, now you can see what it looks like. We've got lines along the outside showing you how to space your pieces. And then when you've decided on the fabrics that you want, we've even listed out the sizes to cut each piece. You guys, this is free. You can find the link below. Honestly, this thing is fun to play with even if you're not planning on making an ornament. But we're not done. I've actually got something else for you. We've got another planner. Now this one is more like a coloring sheet, so it's more just for fun or if you want to play around with some ideas and colors. I did this one last night because my next one is definitely going to be a rainbow. So links for the freebies are down below. I hope you love them. Let's talk about what you'll need to make this ornament. First, you'll need a foam Hemi. Hemi is what we call the half rounds, like a hemisphere. And this one is just under 4 inches across. If you have one of these guys in a different size, this pattern will still totally work. You're just going to have to adjust your fabric piece sizes a little bit. You're going to need about 125 or so straight pins. The exact number is just going to depend on how crazy you get when you're pinning down the edges around the foam. You'll see what I'm talking about when we get to that part. And you're going to need fabric. If you're going to be making each of these tiers different like this, then you're going to need 7 different fabrics. 6 pieces for the heart itself, and then a 7th fabric to create the outside edge. Now all of these fabric sizes are listed here on this template. They're all a little bit different from each other, but I do want to point out here these couple of inner pieces here, I guess 2, 3, 4, and 5. If you want to, you don't have to make those all different lengths. You could make them all the 4 3/4 inch length that we got here for fabric 3. You're just going to have a little more trimming to do, but we did want to give you the exact sizes just in case you're really trying to save as much fabric as possible. One last thing to point out here, whatever fabrics that you use in your heart, whether you're using all different fabrics or if you've got stripes happening or whatever, you're going to want to make sure that fabric 7 contrasts really well with all of those inner pieces. This is a really good example. The red is highly contrasting with the black and white, and so the heart really stands out. But there's always exceptions to every rule. Here's one where the top tier is actually not far off from my outer pieces, but it still looks really good. So you can play around with that and decide for you what you'd like to do. Sometimes it's not just color that will create a good contrast. Sometimes just the texture of the fabric or the pattern of the fabric will also create contrast for you. Oh, one more thing to tell you about the fabric. For real this time, last thing. This fabric list does not include what you will need to cover the back of your Hemi. So you can do any pattern that you want to back here. We've got a bazillion of them. And this one is the parasol. We've also got some freebie patterns too. So you can do anything you want back here, but you will need additional fabric for that. And last but not least, for materials, you'll need whatever embellishments that you want to use. The sky's the limit with this. You can see on many of mine, I did a flat back embellishment in the center, just glued it on. Here's another example of that. Actually, this one's not glued on yet. I'm still deciding on that one. But you don't necessarily have to glue something dead smack in the center. For this one, I actually just pinned on a charm, hanging it from the top of the heart. And then also I did some beads going around the outside. I did beads around the outside of this as well. And in this one, I added trim along the outside edge instead of a regular fabric band. And you know what, I didn't really talk about the band, but let's do that really fast. Just like in a lot of our other ornament patterns, you can use a fabric band wrapped around the outside edge to hide your pins and raw edges. You're gonna wanna do that after you've completed the back of the ornament. This band is about 1.5 inches wide, and I started with it about 13 inches long. All right, you'll need a couple of tools. You'll need a pen or a pencil, a flexible tape measure, and possibly glue for your embellishments. And I believe that's everything. Let's start. So the first thing that we want to do is divide this into quarters, and we just need to put a couple of dash marks on the foam. And the good news, we made you a template, because of course we did. You can get the link to this below, but you'll just cut one of these little strips out. This strip is divided in half, and it does half the Hemi, because this size Hemi is big. It was too big to put on a standard sheet of paper. And we're going to lay this right along the edge and use a pin to hold it in place. You can just leave it sticking halfway out. and then bring it around and pin the opposite side as well. Now we're just going to make a little dash mark right on the face of the foam. Let's get my pen going here, like this. And then do one, I did this at the starting point, do it again at the point where the line is on the paper, and then do it again at the end point. So now we've got 3 dashes already. We just need one more. We're going to unpin this and start it at the same dash line again, the same starting point, pin it into place. You don't even actually have to pin it all the way at the bottom. You can just hold it and draw a 4th dash. That was really squiggly at that line. All right, so now we've got the face of this thing marked into quarters. We're gonna take this though and just sort of continue the line along the curved edge as well. And I like to make this line a good 3/4 to an inch long, because we want to still be able to see it after we've started to put some fabric on. And your fabric is going to overlap the edges just a little bit. And that's it. Our foam is prepped and ready to go. All right, you're going to start with fabric 1, and we're going to hold this with the pattern side facing away, and then fold it in half top to bottom lengthwise. And finger press the crease. And then find the center along that top fold by folding it in half and giving it a little finger press, and then unfold. And right there where your crease is the center. And we're going to take a pin and pin it just a hair below the top folded edge, right through that crease. And we're going to pin this right at one of those dash marks that we made, right at the edge and just over the edge. So it's actually being pinned into the curved side of the foam, but keeping it right there at that line. And go ahead and pin this down. Now, every time that you're pinning along the edges of the Hemi, you're going to have to be careful about the angle of your pin so that you're pushing the pin into the thicker part of the foam here, and so it doesn't accidentally come out the face and poke you. And the same along the edges. Any pins here on the edge that you pin into the side, also you want to make sure it doesn't come out the edge and poke you, because it hurts. All right, so we're going to take this now and flatten it down across the face of the Hemi like this, making sure that both sides are reaching to the edge of the Hemi. And go ahead and smooth it down right in the center first and pin at the bottom right next to the raw edge like that. And then we're going to take this and pull it out to the sides, each side, and pin at the edge on the curved side of the foam. So it's not on the face, the flat side, but on the curve. Do the same thing on the opposite side. And then we're going to flatten this all the way down along the rest of the curve. So we're just going to take it little by little here, pulling that fabric out, flattening it around the curve, and then pinning it into place. We like to give this lots of pins here to get it nice and flat. The more pins you add here, the less bubbly things are going to look from the side, and the easier it's going to be when you go to do your trim or band or whatever it is that you're going to be doing on the sides to cover the raw edges and pins. So we like to give it a lot of pins. Alrighty, there we go. I'm going to go ahead and trim off the excess now, right below that pin line. And that is tier 1. Let's switch to fabric 2 now, and we're going to fold this the same way, holding it lengthwise with the pattern side facing away, and then folding it in half top to bottom, and just finger press that top crease. And this one will lay right over top of the bottom raw edges of the first piece of fabric. But we do need to measure down from the top to get the spacing correct here. So let's take a tape measure and align one side of it along that dash line at the very top. But also we want to align an inch line. I mean, it can be any of the numbers, but I like to lay it on an even inch line here because it just makes it easier. So that this inch line is sitting right on the curve here, right on the edge. And I'm going to take a pin and just pin this right into the top, and not press the pin all the way down because it's a temporary pin. And then bring it down so that it aligns with the opposite line on the foam. And we'll pin that as well. Now we want our second tier to sit exactly 1 inch from the top of the foam. So I'm laying this here with the folded edge at the top, right at the 2-inch mark, because I started right here at the 1 inch. And to get this held down, make it a little easier on myself, I'm going to pin down here at the bottom along the raw edge, because I know that each new tier covers the raw edge of the tier before it. So any pins at the bottom will be covered, but if you pin up at the top, they won't be covered. Now keep in mind, you can always pin a temporary pin up there if you needed help holding on to this. But I'm going to go ahead now and take this out to the sides, and pin at the side edges. All right, there is piece number 2. So I want to keep using this tape measure for every single tier. So I'm going to unpin just the top because that's my shorter side and pull it right on through here and then put it right back up there again. So now I can start again, and the top edge of piece 2 is sitting right here at my 2-inch line. So I can go ahead and grab my third piece of fabric, folding it the same way, and I'll align that at the next 1/2 inch line. So right at 2.5 inches. Same exact thing. And I am going to give myself a pin down here just like before, just to help hold it in place. Sometimes I find holding on to these Hemis a little awkward. All right, that's piece 3. Again, just pull this right on out and put it right back. So I'm coming down another 1/2 inch. Here we go with fabric 5. Coming down another 1/2 inch as always, but I will say this piece is the most awkward for me because we're coming down around the bottom of the Hemi, and for some reason I have a hard time holding on to it. So I'm going to give this one or 2 pins, maybe just 1 pin to help hold it in place, just like we did a couple of times before. And then pin the sides. And just be real careful that you're following the curve at the top and the bottom of the side so that you don't get any buckling later. So I'm smoothing this out like that. And actually, I think I went a little off there. I can see that the top edge is not very straight. So we'll try that again. I think I'll remove this pin now. I think that's what's kind of messing me up. All right, we've only got 1 more to go. And sometimes when you're pulling this out of the bottom here, it's easy to accidentally yank it out of the bottom also. So be careful that stays in place. We'll pop it right back up here one last time. And this time we're back to a square for piece 6. We could do this the same way that we did the top, where you fold it in half, top to bottom, and then pin it on around the bottom there and pin around the edges. However, with this particular piece, I think it's easiest to fold it in half on the diagonal and lay it across there like this. I find that you just have a little bit of extra stretch here and you can get things a little bit smoother. So let's do like always and come down 1/2 inch. I feel like I got off just a tiny bit with that last piece. It was giving me a hard time. And to help me hold this in place, I'm gonna stick a temporary pin just anywhere to hold it in place for a second. And then we're gonna come out here to the edge and pin one side and then pin the opposite side. So now we've got it held down. We're gonna go ahead and remove the tape measure completely now. So I'm taking out both pins. And I'm just gonna slide this out. And so now we're just gonna start pinning this all along the edges. When you do this, be super careful that you don't tug the fabric out of its placement. You want this line to remain straight across. That temporary pin right there really helps to hold that in place, but it's still easy to yank it out. All right, now this one can go, and that's it for the tier pieces. So now we can go ahead and trim off all this excess below the pin line. And look at it, it's already pretty, and we haven't even put the heart on yet. P.S. We're actually going to be doing other shapes besides just a heart. So make sure you're subscribed. That way you'll know whenever we add new variations of this. All right, let's start building this heart. We're going to be sticking a couple of marker pins along the outside edge to help us with the placement of these last couple of pieces. And the first pin is going to go right in the edge at one of the side dash marks, so we can start on the left or the right, but it's going to be going into the foam on an angle so that it's almost like halfway between the rounded side and the flat side. But keep it at that marker pin, and it's going to be just sort of sticking out like that. And then we'll do the same thing on the opposite side at the opposite marker pin, or I'm sorry, at the opposite dash mark. And marker pins, guys, are temporary pins. They're going to come out in a few minutes. They're just to help us with the placement of our fabric. And last but not least, we're going to do one at the bottom. So this is on the the sixth tier. Same thing. It's going to go kind of between the face and the curve. So here's what you got, is what it looks like from the side. And now we're going to grab one of those 2x4 inch edge pieces. And again, we're going to hold this with the pattern side facing away and then fold it in half top to bottom. And finger press the top crease. So we're going to start on the right side, and the right raw edge of this is going to sit just below that right marker pin. The top folded edge is sitting right up against the marker pin, and just a little bit of fabric is extending past it like this. And we're going to pin this into the side of the foam. But then take the left side, the left long side, and curve it around the face of the Hemi a little bit and down towards that bottom marker pin. So it's going to sit a little bit on top of the Hemi, and you can see the shape like this, stretching from one marker pin to the opposite. And we're going to pin down here along the edge as well. Now we're going to be giving this a bunch of pins in a minute, but let's just give it one pin for now, and then we're going to do the opposite side to make sure things are even before we add lots of pins. But you're going to take this and smooth it down. Now be super careful that you don't pull it, because again, you'll pull it right out of the line that we just created, and we don't want to do that. We want that nice straight line. Just curve it really gently without moving it and shifting it around. And then we're going to pin along the edge into the curved part in the center. And that's going to help hold it in place for a minute while we repeat this on the opposite side. So let's go ahead and prep it the same way, folding it in half top to bottom, lengthwise. And we'll start up here on the left, just like we did on the right side, with just a little bit of fabric extending to the left of this marker pin, the folded edge resting against the marker pin, and then pin it to hold it in place. And then we'll bring this down the same way, letting the folded edge kind of rest over the flat part of the foam and bringing it to that bottom marker pin. And it's going to crisscross over the left side of this first piece. And we'll go ahead and pin it down here to hold it as well. So doing the same thing we did over here, we're just going to smooth this down and pin it in the center to hold it, center bottom along the raw edge. And now, before we add more pins and really shape this up, we want to take a look at it and make sure it looks even. You may have to use your hands to kind of press it down so you can see what the actual shape of it is. Mine actually looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. But you can always unpin and adjust as needed to try to get them as even as possible. So now let's get this nice and tacked down. I'm going to add a bunch more pins, just like we did on all the other pieces. Alrighty, we can go ahead and remove these marker pins and give this a trim. All right, you guys, we've only got 2 more pieces to go. We're going to use 2 more marker pins, and we want to place them a 1/2 inch above the folded edge of the second tier. So they're going to go into the tier 1 fabric a 1/2 inch above this fold. And they can go anywhere. These are just going to help us lay our last piece of fabric across the top. But I started my tape measure right here at the top of that tier 2 fold, and I'm sticking a marker pin in at the 1/2 inch point. And again over here, like I said, placement is not that important. We're just going to use it to help guide us in this second to last piece. I almost said last. We're going to prep it the same way that we did on the previous 2 pieces. And now take this and hold it upside down, and we're just going to let the top folded edge of this piece rest against those 2 marker pins. And now we know we'll have a straight line going all the way across. That's a 1/2 inch above the second tier. And this means that our first tier now is a 1/2 inch wide, just like all the others. The marker pins help here because it's awkward holding this. If you want to, you can stick a pin to help you hold it in place while you work on the sides. So I feel like the right side of this got pulled up a little bit, and you can see how it's like rippling up. So I'm just gonna try to smooth it back down. My fabric 7 is like a little bit glittery. Hopefully you guys can see this in the video, but I don't know. But that's making it a little bit thicker. And so it doesn't lay as smoothly around these curves as I would like. Regular quilting cotton lays really nicely, and anything that doesn't lay nice, you can get held down really well with pins. Lots of pins. But this fabric is weird. It's very pretty though. All right, we can go ahead and remove all of these pins and then give it a trim. All right, and we've got just one more piece to go, and this is going to be that slightly shorter 2" by 3" rectangle of fabric 7. And this time we're going to be doing the basic triangle fold. You're going to hold it with the pattern side facing away from you, and then take the top edge and fold it down just a small amount, like maybe 3/8 of an inch or so, but you don't have to be exact about that. And then we're going to find the center by folding it in half the opposite direction and finger pressing the crease, unfold it, and then take a pin and pin right through that top crease, just a hair below the top folded edge. So hold your heart upside down again, and we're going to be pinning this at the folded edge of tier 2. Here's tier 1, here's tier 2, and the folded edge is now at the bottom because we're holding the heart upside down. This is where we want to start the point of this next fold. In addition to that though, we also want it to align with the dash mark at the top of the heart right now on the bottom. So we're going to pin this right there at that fold line and in alignment with that dash. And if you want to, you can use your tape measure just as a tool to line it up. And right there is my spot. Press it flat down, and now the basic triangle is folding the left side straight down like that, and the right side straight down. The right side will overlap the edge of the left side just a teeny bit. That way you'll have one line running right down the center of this newly formed triangle, and then take a look and make sure that that line is also aligning with this line that you drew. And when you're happy, and if things look even, you can go ahead and pin around the curve at the bottom, holding down both halves. And then smooth down the 2 corners, the left and the right bottom corners, and pin those as well. It's a little awkward on the edge here. Just smooth it as much as you can. And now, as always, we're going to add more pins around the edge. When you go to do your trim or your band or whatever it is you're going to do, you will see why we did all these pins. It's going to make your life a lot easier. All right, awesome. I'm going to go ahead and trim this. And we have a heart. So from here, you'll just flip it over and cover the back with whatever pattern you'd like to use. And then you'll use a piece of trim or a ribbon or a fabric band or anything you'd like to cover all the pins and raw edges around your heart. And then of course you can decorate however you'd like. So guys, if you got any questions, please be sure to put them in the comments below and I'll help you out the best that I can. Thanks so much for watching. Happy ornamenting.